Hey guys, land trusts are a great way to hide ownership of real estate unless you do it the wrong way. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what happened when somebody tried to do this themselves and what you can do going forwards to make sure you don't make these same mistakes. Okay, let's get started. All right, land trusts are a great tool when it comes to investing in real estate, as I stated, to mask your ownership. But there is a certain way in which you must set these things up. And trying to go about it on your own without knowing the details can lead to a path where someone's going to be able to discover your ownership, as what I did when I was contemplating putting together this video and I wanted to do some research on land trusts in any state. So what I ended up doing is I chose Florida. I said, hey, give me any title to real estate that is held in a land trust. And I searched title to property in Florida. And I came up with the one link right away, this property right here. So you see that this property on 6947 Long Pine Creek, Coconut Creek, is held in the Florida, or this Snowflake Land Trust. So property was titled in the name of this trust. Now, when you see this, your initial reaction should be to go back and look at the deed. So how did this property get transferred into this land trust? Because I want to see whether or not there's any relation from the trust to the actual property owner. So I went back and I pulled the deed on this property transfer. And so what I found is that this individual here, I can't even pronounce her name, Archana Miani, a married woman, grantor in Florida, conveys to Mickey Asset Management, LLC, as trustee of the Snowflake Land Trust. So what this person did is they deeded property from their name to a LLC as the trustee of the Snowflake Land Trust. Now, at first blush, you may say, okay, well, somebody set up a limited liability company serving as a trustee of their land trust. She must have sold the property. Well, not so fast. You can't make those assumptions, because a good attorney would research the LLC. You see, the LLCs, those are public. Land trust documents are not. So I can't pull the Snowflake Land Trust to see whether or not Archana is somehow part of the trust and maybe is the beneficiary or a secondary trustee. I can't see that. So the only thing I can go off of is the public record. And what I see here is that she transferred title to the trustee, Mickey Asset Management LLC, of the Snowflake Land Trust. And so I'm left wondering, well, did she sell it, or did she set up this structure and try to hide her identity? So in order to make that determination, my next step in this journey to discover who's involved was to go to a website called opencorporates.com. Now, this is a free website. You can go there. And what I did is I went to opencorporates.com and I put in Mickey Asset Management LLC to see where that entity was filed. Could have been in Florida. I mean, that's where she's from, but it wasn't. It was actually set up in Alaska. So here's a Florida resident, transferred it to this trust with an Alaska limited liability company listed as the trustee. Okay, so once I discovered the fact that this was an Alaska limited liability company, and it took me all of about 4 minutes to figure this out, I then went to the Alaska Secretary of State's website and typed in Mickey Asset Management LLC. Now, this is where I started to get hits. What you see down here, Archana is listed as a member manager of this limited liability company. You see, I assume that when she set this structure up, maybe she didn't even do it on her own. Maybe she hired someone. They told her, if you use an Alaska LLC, you're going to have anonymity because the LLC will be listed as a trustee. The problem is that Alaska collects information on the members or managers of limited liability companies. So by choosing Alaska as the state to form her LLC, she was disclosing the fact that to anyone who looks, that this is her limited liability company, that she deeded it into a trust that is run, or the trustee of a trust in which she owns that LLC trustee. So you might be wondering, why would you do this? And the answer is because they didn't know any better. So if you're setting up a land trust and you wish to have anonymity, you have two choices here. Either you use a nominee trustee, like myself at Anderson here. When we create land trusts, many times, especially in Florida, I will serve as the nominee trustee. So this will never happen. The property would have been transferred from her to Clint Coons Esquire as trustee of the Snowflake Trust. Now, if she did that and somebody looked, all it would point him to was me. And they would have no way of knowing whether or not, because I am an avid real estate investor, if this was just one more asset in my portfolio. But the reality of the situation is, if that person could see the trust document, they would see that Archana is actually the successor trustee when I resigned. And I would have resigned and she would have taken over as trustee, and that would have all been private. The other option, if you're not using an attorney that we do here at the firm, is we'll set up a Wyoming limited liability company. So Mickey Asset Management, had they chosen Wyoming versus Alaska or even Delaware or New Mexico even, all three of those states that I just mentioned do not collect information on the members or managers. All right. So that information would have been private. You could have looked that entity up. If you went to opencorporates.com, it would say, hey, this is a Wyoming LLC. And you're thinking, oh, I figured this out. And then you go to Wyoming and you put in Mickey Asset Management and it comes back with zero information unless you made the second mistake she made. And that second mistake was that when she filled out this form, she listed her personal address right here. You see, this is her address in Florida. So now I knew for sure. I mean, assuming that she created this in Wyoming, because she's using her personal address for the business address of this entity that's associated back to her, this is going to tie it to her in her state. So do not use your personal address on a Wyoming or Delaware or what I said, New Mexico limited liability company for its business address. Always use a virtual business address. And that's one of the reasons why when we create a Wyoming LLC or any LLC for that matter for our clients, to maintain that anonymity shield, we use a virtual business address that we have in Wyoming or Nevada to shield entities in Florida, New York, and New Jersey, and Texas, and you name it. So nothing points back to our client. So this was one major error that would allow me to figure this out. Now, there are other ways too, and I decided to go a little deeper on this just to verify my instincts and what I've already found, and that is to pull the tax records. You see, people can get this all straight. They can not set it up in Alaska. They set it up in Wyoming. They don't use their personal address. They use a virtual business address here on their filing. But even though they get all of these things right, many times they miss the last step. The last step in this process is to ensure that the property tax statement reflects what is on the filing. That is the trustee. Nothing points back to you. And unfortunately for this person, Archana, she messed that up because you can see here she put the trust name and all that there, but look at the address again. It's going to her home address. You see, the property tax statements, when you deed property into an anonymity structure, need to reflect a virtual business address as well, preferably out of state that matches up with the trustee LLC, and do not use this in-state address. Now, of course, there's always exceptions to this rule. If you are investing subject to, then you need to talk to us. Do not try to implement this on a subject to deal because that will alert the lender to the fact that there's been a transfer. And so whenever we're putting together a plan for someone who desires anonymity in their structure, you have to weigh the pros and cons and come up with a solution that is going to help you achieve your goals. In this case, she didn't do it, right? It was all exposed. And so I know that she set up this trust and she's really behind it. I've created tens of thousands of trusts in my career for individual real estate investors, and we've set them up with complete anonymity because there are no small pieces like I've just shown you hanging out there that allows an attorney, a blonde attorney like myself, to go through and figure this stuff out in about 10 minutes. So make sure when you're setting up your land trust, you're using some common themes here that I just talked about. You're setting your trust up. You're using a virtual business address for your LLC trustee for your tax statements. You're setting it up in Wyoming or a state that doesn't collect information on the members or managers of that LLC. And you're making sure that there are no little pieces hanging like I just described that ties the property back to you. And that is how you achieve true anonymity for real estate ownership. Hey, if you really like this video and you want to learn more about how to use land trust in your real estate investing, I'd like to invite you to a free one-day workshop. It's called our Tax and Asset Protection Workshop. We hold these workshops on Saturdays. There's a link in the show notes below. Click on that link. You can register. As I said, it's absolutely free. And on that event, there will be a team of attorneys from my office there to answer your individual questions about asset protection planning, about business planning, about strategy planning, and about tax reduction. Listen, it'll be the best day you ever spent, and I guarantee you that if you attend that event, you will leave that event in a better position than when you started. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you there.